So what if doing all the things that makes you Donald Trump's best candidate ever for Attorney General means that you never actually get confirmed as Attorney General? It's not a riddle, it's being Todd Blanche. All of the ways that Todd Blanche has bastardized the rule of law to whitewash Trump's criminal history, push career prosecutors to their ethical and moral breaking points, and use the Department of Justice to zealously target Donald Trump's perceived political enemies for prosecution, investigation, and plain old harassment, it might be coming back to haunt him. 2 days ahead of a crucial vote scheduled to advance Todd Blanche's nomination out of the Senate Judiciary Committee, Democrats on that committee are demanding answers and records on the subpoenas that were sent to New York Times reporters, subpoenas that were so problematic that Todd Blanche's Justice Department was actually forced to retreat and withdraw them. The Democrats write this to Blanche, quote, "The administration's attempt to identify confidential press sources in connection with embarrassing public reports regarding the lack of security capabilities of Donald Trump's new Air Force One aircraft, gifted from the country of Qatar, appears to be retaliation ordered by Donald Trump himself. The government's conduct involved a series of apparent bad faith efforts to conceal notice of these subpoenas and intimidate journalists and their families following the publication of a story that allegedly enraged President Trump. This conduct appears to have violated the department's own policy set forth in the Justice Manual. 2 Republicans on the Judiciary Committee are also holding firm, for now, on their commitment to not advance Todd Blanche's nomination for AG until their demands are met. And Todd Blanche can't afford to lose either of their votes. Here's what Republican Senator Thom Tillis and Republican Senator John Cornyn told reporters from this network earlier today.
Where are you on Todd Blanche?
We're still waiting on getting the changes that are necessary in 1776 and audit.
It has to be in writing and signed by Todd Blanche.
Do you need to see that by Thursday in order to be able to vote him out of committee?
Yes.
Okay.
And can we
so right now, he should not be counting on your vote unless that is done. Is that
That's correct? They've been kind of radio silent for the last 24 hours. So I think my staff is talking to them, but we're not. They know what they need to do. They just don't want to do it.
This vote is coming up very quickly. I mean, would you recommend that it be postponed if it's going this way?
That's being discussed. That's being discussed. But hopefully it won't be necessary.
So far, neither senator has been willing to take Todd Blanche at his word. Essentially, they don't trust him when he says that Trump's slush fund is dead. And that crisis of credibility extends just beyond Todd Blanche and other leaders. ProPublica is out with extensive new reporting that reviews hundreds of cases where judges have said they don't trust DOJ or DOJ lawyers either. From that reporting, quote, "From Washington, D.C. to Rhode Island to Oregon, federal judges nominated by presidents from both parties, including Donald Trump, have zeroed in on what's called the presumption of regularity. It essentially means that judges must presume that the government did their jobs according to the rules and in good faith. And from the hundreds of cases they reviewed, they found, quote, more than 40 in which judges explicitly referenced the presumption of regularity. In many cases, judges have expressed frustration that they can no longer take the government at its word. Todd Blanche's stewardship of DOJ coming under increased bipartisan scrutiny is where we start today with some of our favorite reporters and friends. Former Assistant Special Agent in charge at the FBI, National Security and Intelligence Analyst Michael Feinberg is here. He's also a fellow at Lawfare. Also joining us, voting rights attorney and founder of Democracy Docket, Mark Elias, is back. And MS Now Justice and Intelligence reporter Ken Dilanian is here. Ken, what do you know about what Cornyn referenced there as sort of, not back channel, but staff to staff level communications and the possibility of postponing Thursday's committee vote on Todd Blanche?
Yeah, that's under active discussion, Nicole. It was so interesting to hear Cornyn say they know what they need to do. They just don't want to do it. Well, who doesn't want to do it? Does Todd Blanche really care whether he says in writing that the slush fund is going away, or is it really more Donald Trump? Because as Cornyn brilliantly elicited during Todd Blanche's hearing, using his skills as a former prosecutor and cross-examining Todd Blanche, this is a written settlement with Donald Trump. And there's nothing in the settlement that says that the slush fund goes away unless there is an amendment to the settlement, unless Todd Blanche puts something in writing. Him just saying it doesn't make it so. They could bring it back at any time, and that's what Cornyn is concerned about and Thom Tillis is concerned about. They find this just completely offensive, the idea that there was going to be a fund that could possibly reward people who assaulted police officers on January 6th, and they are not going away on this, even as Democrats ask these hard questions, as you pointed out, about the subpoenas of New York Times reporters. Democrats not likely to get answers, but Cornyn and Tillis have the leverage.
What's so interesting, Michael Feinberg, is that a single one of these would be a confirmation halting scandal in and of itself, right? To find out that Donald Trump ordered Todd Blanche to order subpoenas into 5 New York Times journalists, to put them before a grand jury to out their sources, and also involve their families, the mother of one and the spouses of 2. Here's Todd Blanche just owning what in a normal moment, in a normal time, in a normal future moment, is a scandal.
The Department of Justice requires that I authorize it, which I did. And those reporters, we're not targeting reporters. They're material witnesses, just like a reporter would be a material witness to a car crash. Yeah, they are witnesses. And so,
and the question you want to ask them is, who were their sources?
No,
that goes to the heart of the First Amendment.
No, the question we want to ask them is who provided them with classified national security information, which everybody in this body should want to protect. I would hope.
Michael Feinberg, there is a sort of an insulting. It's one thing when Todd Blanche insults the media. It's another when he insults members of the Senate that will determine whether or not he's confirmed. But what he says there is the same thing that he's asked. You want to ask them who their sources were. That goes to the heart of the First Amendment. No, I want to ask them who provided them with classified national security information, which everybody in this body should want to protect, I would hope. This is a line that I think wouldn't have been crossed without sort of roadblock coverage in another moment, and we'll do our best to lift it up for the scandal that it is. But it did elicit, even in these abnormal times, an extraordinary result. Todd Blanche withdrew those subpoenas, and for now they are dead.
Well, in every way you can possibly imagine, these particular subpoenas were in violation of policy, precedent, and tradition. From an investigator's point of view in the FBI, you are required, before seeking records from a reporter, to have exhausted all other investigative means you might have of getting the same information. And in the timeline that we've seen in this case, where Kash Patel is whisked back to the White House as he's about to leave town, told to personally take charge of this investigation, and the subpoenas are issued within 24 hours or so, it's impossible to believe that other techniques were tried at all, let alone that all other possible techniques were tried before going to these subpoenas. And the Justice Department itself supports the policy of using the least intrusive means in an investigation and prosecution whenever possible, just as a general matter of respecting citizens' privacy and civil liberties. If you are jumping directly to search warrants and trying to get records of communications, you're by definition not using the least intrusive means. There are a lot of other things you can do. If all they are concerned about is who might have leaked classified information, get a list of everybody in the White House who had access to that information and go after their records first. That's how it's always been done, because we recognize that there is a value in having an unfettered free press that is allowed to do its job. Now, look, there are times that I do think the press oversteps its side of the deal. There was a case many years ago during the Bush administration, I think, or during the Obama administration, where the New York Times ran the true name of some CIA officers. And it did nothing to serve this story. I don't have a problem with when you've endangered an American's life trying to get to the bottom of it. But the only reason this story is being investigated is because it embarrassed Trump. We're not giving away weapon systems, war plans. This is solely because there is egg on the White House's face. And I can think of many more instances under this administration where political appointees gave up classified information, in some cases by adding journalists to signal chats inadvertently, and the administration did absolutely nothing. So to pretend that it's following any sort of normal procedure here, it's not.
Yeah, I mean, Mark Elias, my recollection of this story was that Donald Trump, in a press conference, announced that he was sending the Qatari-gifted Air Force One on a tour by itself to visit troops without him on it. So he tells this lie, and the reporters who were there start asking questions. Why is he sending the Qatari-gifted Air Force One to visit troops without him on it? Like every Trump scandal, if you just, like, you don't even scratch, it's not even scratching the surface. If you just touch the screen, it starts with a big, bold Trump lie. And Miles Taylor has made my favorite point on this whole story. The truth didn't just get out to the press. The truth of the leak into the truth getting out to the press got out immediately. That Kash Patel had squatted at the White House for 8 hours to spearhead a leak investigation was out within hours of the original reporting about the security concerns about the Qatari-gifted Air Force One.
Yeah, I mean, I think the point you made is the most important one. Everything with Donald Trump begins with a lie. It then proceeds to lies, and then it ends with a lie. And so, you know, anyone who starts with the proposition that what Donald Trump and this White House are telling them about anything of consequence is making a huge mistake, whether it is this airplane and, you know, why it was that they had to shift up how he was traveling, whether it is what methods they use to investigate, down to what standards they are going to use to investigate. I mean, you know, one of the things that Todd Blanche has done repeatedly over and over again is to suggest that there are safeguards in place that, in fact, are not in place. We see with our own eyes that what we are witnessing are political decisions by a Department of Justice targeting their political opponent.